A society grows when old men plant trees they'll never sit in. A Greek proverb from long before modern economic problems or economics itself is still true today. But do we live by it? For the first time since the Industrial Revolution, children aren't wealthier than their parents, despite setbacks and historical outliers. This trend has held true for most developed economies. For a long time, it was expected that people's children would have a better lifestyle than they did. But today, most young professionals can only aspire to live the lifestyles their parents did. Young generations are finding it harder to get reliable jobs, afford comfortable homes, start a family, and save for retirement. This is despite the fact that the world is much richer today than in the 20th century, when baby boomers built their fortunes. How come? How can a richer world create poorer generations? Is there a reason? Can it be reversed? And if not, does that mean every generation will be poorer than the one before it? It's probably worth asking too, since everyone dies and leaves behind wealth. Welcome to the Financial Flow. Please like and subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up on our latest videos. Is it better to be born into a large cohort with many people your age, or a small cohort with not many? In traditional economic theory, a small cohort means less competition for jobs, housing, social programs, good schools, and macro-level natural resources. How do boomers fit? Which, despite the largest population boom ever, are wealthy. Lord David Willetts, a British politician, demographer, and author, argues that a larger cohort is preferable in a democratic system because it gives the group more voting power on generational issues and market sway. When young boomers voted for pro-boomer policies, low cost or free college, family support, and strong social welfare, when they reached the top of their careers, they voted for lower income taxes, less business regulation, more domestic industry protections to avoid outsourcing and global competition, and zoning laws to protect the value of their homes. The push towards suburbs with single-family building requirements meant that houses got bigger and good locations got more desirable. In the 1950s, houses were commodities, so cars often cost more than the family home. Homes are now also investments. In old age, boomers vote for retirement benefits, pension schemes, medical infrastructure, and wealth taxes, even if it costs the schemes that served them well in their youth. Of course, David Willetts' work focused on the UK, and I know some people vote for the greater good rather than their narrow self-interest, but on average, this trend can see throughout the past half-century in most advanced economies. In Australia, the 2019 federal election was decided by a policy that would reduce the tax effectiveness of Australian retirement accounts. The party that has favored keeping favorable tax structure won, thanks to older Australians. In a recent election, the opposition party backed down on its plan to change retirement account taxes and won. A 2017 British election study found that conservative votes are now divided by young and old rather than rich and working class. A lot of what I've discussed so far came from Willetts' book, The Pinch, and a lecture he gave at the Royal Institution. It's worth a read if you're interested in demographic processes. A lifetime of favorable government policy can be hugely beneficial to building wealth. Imagine how much better off the average millennial would be with free college or secondary school. Even if everything else is equal, this would be the difference many young people need to put a deposit on a house. That's the next big issue to consider. The housing divide, David Willetts' small cohort theory, likely omits or downplays an important detail that gave baby boomers an advantage over later generations. It's not just that they bought cheap houses. That helped, but it's a symptom of a larger problem. In a small world, they were numerous. They had all the voting power and few rivals. In the 1950s and 1960s, the global population was a third of what it is today. If you were a white man in the countries we focus on, your competition was even less severe. This added back all of the apparent trade-offs we thought of earlier. There were less competition for basically everything, including jobs, because employers had a smaller pool of labor. Low female labor force participation reduced the supply and bargaining power of workers, but it also meant domestic duties were taken care of, reducing household spending on childcare, food, and maintenance. Due to higher relative incomes and lower outgoings, houses could often be paid off in a year. Yes, they had to endure higher interest rates, especially in the 1970s and 1980s, but it didn't make as much of a difference as it would today. The median home cost $82,000 in 1985. 50% of homes like the ones first-time buyers would be looking at would be cheaper than this. But let's keep it simple and stick with $82,000. The $82,000 median household income becomes $103,000. The average mortgage rate at the time was 15% or $15,000 per year. It did get higher in certain years, but most borrowers were fixed at 15%. So this is a worst case scenario. The median home costs $430,000 and the average interest rate is over 5% or $21,500 per year in interest. This is adjusted for median incomes at the time, so on the surface, these seem pretty comparable. Maybe the younger generations shouldn't complain about unaffordable housing after all. Many people dismiss this comparison because inflation was high at the time. Nope. Consumer Price Index inflation was 3.5% in 1985 and 13.5% in 1980, not housing inflation. During these decades, house prices grew slowly, everything else did. This is the opposite of what we expect today. When house price growth outpaces inflation, the inflation argument isn't fair. So, is it fair to complain about how easy it was for baby boomers to buy a home? No. They had it easy for two other reasons. High interest rates helped them, which is surprising. Putting money in an account that pays 10% interest per year speeds up savings. Higher interest rates ensured that house prices never got too high because of unaffordable repayments. In our previous example, we only looked at the interest paid on the loans, but with a mortgage, you have to pay back the principal as well. If payments were kept equal, a person who bought a home in 1985 could pay it off in 5 years, not 30. So why do I focus on housing? Despite being vital, houses are unproductive, an asset. Real estate doesn't produce anything. A house on land can appreciate and provide a home or rental income, but it earns nothing. There are investments like cryptocurrencies that don't produce value, but their market is minuscule compared to the real estate market. If Bitcoin hits $1 million, it will be great for investors and have some minor knock-on effects in other markets, but it won't put anyone out of work. Affordability can do that and slow economies. Every economy in the world is focused on large economic centers, or cities. If real estate in these cities get too expensive, it becomes impossible for workers to hold down jobs because more of their income goes to rent. They were too old to benefit from the rapid economic expansion in the following decades. Despite being a large portion of the population, they lacked the economic prosperity of their Western peers. Boomers enjoyed economic prosperity beyond their control. By historical standards, the last half of the 20th century was very peaceful. The world opened to an international trade, and growth was fueled by cheap fossil fuels. It was a good time to get rich, and many did. Probably the last piece of the puzzle. Once multimillionaires and billionaires become rich, they rarely become poor. Generational billionaires will skew these numbers to make them look worse than they are. In a group with 1 billionaire and 999 broke people, the average is a millionaire. Most billionaires are old, and this will affect their generational wealth. If we look at billionaires by age in China, where voting by the general population doesn't really happen, we can see that wealth comes from strong economic conditions, not just being able to bend public policy to suit you and your peers. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Have a good one.